Chapter 14. The next day at dawn, Chung Myeong stretched his body. His danjeon, which used to be small and feeble, was now in a period of noticeable growth. The energy which accumulated had grown to be clearly recognizable. With every breath he took, Chung Myeong could feel his energy resonate and purify his body. Bright and clean energy. Even Chung Myeong was taken aback. Despite having lived for decades, he had never witnessed such a clean and transparent energy before. His danjeon was now accumulating this energy. Although the size was limited and wielding enormous strength would be difficult, with time, more power would accrue and he would be able to reach new heights he had never reached before. How long will it take? After cultivating, Chung Myeong's face distorted. In order to reach his former peak and even exceed it, he needed time. Mount Hua was facing its doom now. Would it wait for him to gain power? Chung Myeong pushed aside and suppressed his anger as he analyzed the situation. Let's get this straight. The problems in Mount Hua are innumerable. If he had to pick one out, Chung Myeong wouldn't be able to decide which was most important. However, there were 3 things he knew. No money, no martial arts, and no talent. So what is wrong? Any one of these issues were bad enough, but when they were all piled on top of each other, he could feel his stomach curling in on itself. What was the biggest problem? Young talent. Chung Myeong simplified it. Money could be earned, and he has a wealth of martial arts knowledge that could be taught naturally. So where do we get talented youth? Talent wasn't something Chung Myeong could influence. He couldn't just go out and kidnap talented kids to save Mount Hua, and finding out who was talented and who wasn't by looking at them was impossible. If so, he would have to go for the children of prestigious families. So, I need to make use of them. Chung Myeong clenched his fists. What would change even if he blamed himself? He had no choice but to make the best of what was available to him. It was clear that the people here weren't very good, and there was a shortage of teaching staff. But if the people here are deficient, they must be taught, and if they are broken, they must be fixed. Of course, I never took in a disciple. Old memories came to his mind. When he was old enough to accept a disciple, his Sahyong asked, Chung Myeong. Yes, Sahyong. Now is the time to take in a disciple. How do you plan on teaching your disciples? Do you even need to ask? What do you mean? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Should they make a mistake, they will be beaten. Even dogs will walk on their hind legs if trained to do so. I assume humans can't be too different, right? Let's talk again later. After that, Sahyong never brought up taking on a disciple again. I never expected to receive so many disciples at once. Chung Myeong's lips curled into a smile. If anyone had seen that, they would surely think of it as a wicked smile. I'm so sleepy. Why do we need to gather at dawn? Great Sahyong, isn't this too much? Yongjun closed his eyes. Just be quiet, will you bastards. The rules of Mount Hua are relatively strict, but the children weren't yet forced to give up on worldly affairs. They were children from families that control their own regions, even if they were not from famous families. As a result, they can't stand being inconvenienced and aren't used to being patient. Even though it had only been half a day since they had been beaten, they still let loose with their complaints. Yongjun lifted his head and looked at Jogul. At least Jogul kept silent in this situation. Well, it wasn't that the others didn't understand the situation. Despite complaining, everyone did come over here as requested. Yunjong stared at the dorms. Where did that monster even come from? Chung Myeong wielded a broken chair leg with a demon-like appearance, defeating over 30 kids in an instant. When he thought about it, chills passed through his body. But who the hell is he? They were words that expressed everyone's feelings. As if I could know. There were more than 30 people. Is it even possible for the seniors to control a crowd like that? I don't know. But what was certain was that even the great disciples wouldn't be able to imitate what that monster did. That kid only joined us yesterday. He must have learned martial arts somewhere else already, right? Anyway, does it make sense to be here without even having anything to eat? Everyone was confused. Even Yunjong, who was older and lived longest in Mount Hua, couldn't figure it out. But he knew that something was up. Is he going to hit us again? It wasn't known who said it, but everyone went stiff upon hearing those words. Is that possible? It could be that he wants us to remember last night's embarrassment. What if we fail? Worry spread among the crowd. Everyone turned their heads. Jogul, who was standing there, spoke. If you all don't want to be hit again, then just stay quiet and follow what he says. Jogul Sayong. Jogul was known to have the best skills among the disciples, and even he was shaking. Crazy bastards. What? Get hit again? Get hit and end up stuck in the ceiling? Jogul was confident in his skills, but even he couldn't compare to this monster, despite being called a genius in Mount Hua. In the end, martial arts are something people learn. Even without sufficient teaching and good martial arts, he was confident that he could even stand toe-to-toe with the genius disciples of the most prestigious sects. However, that confidence flew away after that one punch struck his jaw. Then why were we asked to gather here? The disciples tilted their heads, looking at the strange tools ahead of them. Right. How do you use these? Long wooden rods and then a sturdy pouch, large enough to fit a person's head, filled with something. And why repair pebbles and sand pouches? Do I look like I know? As everyone was groaning, the door swung open. All the clamoring mouths went silent at once and looked at the person, Chung Myeong, slowly walking out. But on his face, the annoyance was evident. Why does he look so bothered? If you're so bothered, don't gather us like this. Chung Myeong stopped and then looked around as he asked, Is everyone here? Yes! Keep quiet or the Sasuks will wake up. Crack, crack. Chung Myeong stretched his neck and then said, Well, we are going to be living together for the foreseeable future. Though I don't know how it will turn out. Maybe we would even end up spending the rest of our lives together. I will go home even if that means death. I'll make it down. I'll make it down the mountain at any cost. Even those who had decided to live and die with the Mount Hua Sect had second thoughts upon hearing those words. But in my opinion, Chung Myeong smiled, you people are too weak. The most insulting and disgraceful words to those who walk the path of martial arts is weak. Even if they were only here from merchant families to build a name for themselves, it was painful to take such an insult to their faces. Shit. The problem was that they couldn't object to it. These were the words of a person who beat 30 people at once without being hit. No one could deny it. Well, even I agree that martial arts aren't everything in life, but you all chose to study and learn as Mount Hua Sect members. Then you should aim to be as strong as you can be, right? So starting from today, you will practice with me every morning. That's nice, right? As if. Someone raised their hands when they saw Chung Myeong's shameless attitude. What is it? Do we have to do this? Chung Myeong looked at the one who asked the question with a bitter gaze and then turned to Yoonjung. Yoonjung, who looked at Chung Myeong, flinched as he said, It's because not everyone was there at that time. Ah, right. There were people who didn't get hit. Some didn't participate in that bullying. Even if word of what happened had spread, not many would believe that and step back, right? You don't want to then? You seem like a newcomer, so why are you talking all this nonsense? No matter what, you should at least mind your manners. Chung Myeong nodded at those words. Yes, a person must be polite. In that sense, those who have no intention of becoming strong or training, raise your hand. If 100 people gather, there will be at least 1 or 2 who don't care. And as those 1 or 2 hands come up, others will start to raise. Roughly a dozen or so. Right. Martial arts aren't everything. All right, you guys, let's go inside. Can we go? Sure. The faces of Jogul and Yoonjung went pale at those words. You idiots. Let's go is different from you go. They are walking into a hell of their own making. The children, unaware of their situation, smiled brightly and entered the dorms. And Chung Myeong followed them with a smile. Tuck! The door was neatly closed behind them. No one dared to open their mouths as they looked at the dorm. Contrarily, there were no screams either. But that's... Yoonjung looked at the dorm. The entire building was swaying slightly, and it was obvious what was happening inside. A short time passed. Key! The door opened, and from the inside, the kids sprinted out with their might as if they had seen a ghost, and then came over and took their positions. Chung Myeong, who came out, began to speak once more. Who among you doesn't want to practice? None. Be quiet. Others will wake up. None. Good. Chung Myeong clapped once and began to move. I, as an instructor, like to make people strong. The future of Mount Hua is bright. I will do everything I can to make you stronger. Now, let's begin. Seeing the sun rising in the distance, Yoonjung tightly closed his eyes. The future of Mount Hua was bright, but their future